Thokoza, Kok. Thokoza, Kok. Yezwakala.
Thokozani.
Thokoza. Ngiyangizwa?
I can hear you.
Yezwakala.
Yes. I'm trying to join my
So,
laptop so
yazi.
that you can't hear me.
Maybe it's my volume. My volume is on high.
You're supposed to be able to hear me.
Sengiyakuzwa manje. Uyaphila?
I am ngiyapil.
Siyaphila, siyabonga. Uyazi-ke siyamixa, sikhuluma isiNgisi, sikhuluma isiZulu, sikhuluma isiSwati, isiXhosa.
Ilesikhathi esiphila kuso.
Yeah, we are multilingual, multicultural, multi-knowledge. Siyabamukela abangenayo, siyabamukela bonke. Thokozani. Rejoice, rejoice, as the song of Duduzo Makatini goes. You are ready? When must I say put you on as host?
I'm trying to connect my laptop. So I use my phone as the audio.
Okay.
And the laptop as okay. Just give me a second.
Not a problem. Meanwhile, I welcome everybody. I will be mixing isiZulu nesingisi. Maybe a little bit of Shona. Mamuka say, nivuke kanjani. Welcome. Yes, we are speaking about these two books. I'm not sure if I'm going to quote from them, but Nkosi is the one leading.
Can you please let my laptop in?
Now I can let you in.
The laptop.
All right. How do I do that?
You just admit.
Well, I've admitted you.
There's another account that you need to admit. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the other one is for audio, and then the other one is for presentation.
You have been admitted. So now I'm going to I'm going to admit Nkosi to lead us and to host us in this wonderful session. Our second session in the Sunday healing sessions. It's a series of healing sessions. You must be happy that it's free for now. One day it's going to be very expensive, this session. For now it's free and we are recording. And for those who cannot make it, a lot of people saying they cannot make it yet. So we're recording, and when people drop their emails, drop your DMs, we're going to email to some of you some of this. But otherwise, we're ready to go.
You haven't admitted the laptop.
I have not. It says I have Nelly, Nkosi. Oh, this other one. Risk compliance. Hey,
yes.
Am I supposed to know? There it is. Nkosi, but now I must actually admit you as host. Have I not done that yet? I have.
No.
I haven't done. Can you load the slides? Can you load your things in?
I'm not yet host.
Ish, you know, being an elder, these things. Ancient youth, sometimes we take time to get.
I just wanted to greet the Royals. Sanmonani.
Thokoza. You are in blue. Why? So why we just knew this thing, eh?
Did I freeze?
Yes, you're just gonna wear blue. You are there. We can see you. We can see you. So now I'm gonna fade away and let you take over.
Okay, I'm host now. I'm not sure what's going on in the network.
How come we've lost 4 other people? There were 4 people here now. There was 8. Now there's 4. I don't know. I hope they can make it back in. Those who can't, I will be working on my phone. You are on now. I can see you.
I'm on now.
Yes, you are on. Hi.
Thokoza. Okay.
Yeah, you're on. Maqaba, how are you?
Sorry, I was just admitting a few people into the meeting. They were in the waiting room.
Okay, admit.
Siyaphila.
I think the color is blue today. I'm also in blue.
We are all in blue and gray. My art is full force.
Hi.
What are you? Yeah, no one told anyone. You see, it's telepathically. Telepathic.
Hotep, bros.
Hotep squealy.
Tawazamkhulu.
Tawazamkhulu.
Second engine.
Siyaphila. I see.
Nice.
The sun is shining. Harare. But Nelly, you can take over, Coco. I'm tired of seeing.
Okay.
So I must just remove my video. Everyone is well?
Okay, I'm also going to remove my video for the duration of the presentation.
But we were enjoying watching you. We hardly see you. Hey, oh gosh. Nadala, you can do your thing.
It's slowing down my.
Night you were in pajamas and all.
You're in pajamas. Please don't show us. We don't want to know.
No, Nelly was in pajamas.
Oh, she was in pajamas. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm removing myself. Welcome everybody. Let's begin. Let's do this. When at the end of 45 minutes, I'm still using the cheap free one. So we're gonna relog. I'm gonna log you back on. You people must just go to the link again and start over.
I think if you're using it for the is it the first time? If you're using it for the first time,
it's for the second time.
It automatically just grants you. It extends.
Extra. Okay, wonderful. I'm using it for the most time. I don't know. It's not even the second time. Asienige, Kokneli, over to you.
Okay. Just give me a second to share my screen. Okay.
I wish you guys
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes. And don't forget to fill your questions on the chat group. Those who have questions and comments, put them on the chat, and I will attend to the chats while Gogo Nelly attends to the presentation. So just write your questions, and I'll attend to you. Or raise your hand if you have other questions.
Okay, so following Sanbonani Bantabatala, greetings to all the elders that are amongst our space. Thank you so much for joining us for the session. For today's session, it was as requested by last week that we have a discussion about herb preparation. So today's session, we're gonna focus on herb preparation. And I believe I sent the outline of the session. So what I had removed from the initial invite said we're also gonna discuss how to make the pills and what else was there? So I had to remove them because the content had become so lengthy. Hopefully one day we will be we can touch base on that. So the first topic that we're gonna cover is herbal teas, how to make herbal teas properly, how to make herbal teas properly. So it is the first method that we're gonna discuss is the hot infusion. So recommended that you only use this for the fragile. So you would take your herb of choice. When I say fragile, I mean like your flowers, your leaves, those ones that are not as hard as your roots and your bark, you know. So this method is recommended for that. So what you would need is it's a jar that has a tight lid and water, hot water. And then you would place your herb of choice in the jar. So another caution here is that you don't use this method if the herb is heat sensitive. If the herb is heat sensitive, don't use this method. Rather use the other infusion methods that I'm going to discuss a bit later on. So you pour the hot water the herb, and then you close the jar tightly, and then you wait 45 minutes for the infusion to happen. And then once that has happened, you can rewarm your water and you strain it and then drink it as you would desire. Is there anything that anybody else needs clarity on this method of herb preparation?
How do you know if herbs are heat sensitive?
So different herbs, like trying to discuss the different herbs in the preparation methods, it's a bit tricky, because some herbs require, before you even get to the infusion, some herbs require a certain process to take place. So by virtue of you having said that this is the herb that I'm gonna use, you should already know what the prerequisite of that herb is. I don't know if it makes sense, because different herbs have different requirements. Each herb, if you're gonna make a garlic infusion, we had a discussion last week that garlic needs to be chopped to activate the allicin in it. And so if you haven't chopped the garlic, or if you haven't split the clove, the allicin is not activated, and therefore the healing properties are not activated. So each herb would have its own requirements. Does it answer your question, Nkosi?
Thokoza?
Yes.
Thokozani. Yeah, you're actually right, Gogo. I'm going to speak on cannabis, for instance. To actually activate the CBD, you also have to heat it before you put it in any kind of, before you make it any kind of drink. If you're going to use it as a drink, or even if you're going to make it a tincture of it, it actually needs to be activated by heat. So yes, there are different uses to the different ways and preparation to actually get into infusion point. Towards.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna move to, as in network is failing us today. So we're gonna talk about solar infusions. I've got the hang of this now. Solar and lunar infusions. So this method, Mkulu, is for those herbs. I recommend this method for the herbs that are not so heat sensitive. Remember the last time I said that I don't recommend a hot infusion for herbs that are heat sensitive. So because solar and lunar infusion, you're not really exposing it to harsh high temperatures. So what you basically do, you pour water. It's irrelevant whether the water is hot or it's cold, and then you expose your herb from sunrise to sunset to the sun, or from sunset up until the sunrise, if you want to make a lunar infusion. So there's various reasons why you would want to do a lunar infusion. And Koko Nelly sent me a nice message on some of the benefits for a lunar infusion. So she mentioned that for lunar infusions, there's benefits that you get from a new moon and also a full moon, And if you leave your infusion out for 24 to 48 hours, you get the energy, like your herb gets exposed to those energies. I don't know if anybody else has something to add in terms of the benefits of using this method. I mean, the hot infusion is a quick way. It only takes 45 minutes, but solar and lunar infusion requires a lot of patience. And in my view, this is the best method that one can use for if you want to make an infusion.
Can you activate without a glass? Can you activate without a glass? Can you activate on an open, like ukamba, basically, like something open? Ukamba like an open platter. Is it possible or not?
So for the solar infusion, it has to be on a tight lid. Like the lid has to be tight for the infusion to happen. For the LUNAR infusion, you can let open. So if the jar allows for the light of the moon to penetrate, or if you leave it on the path of the moon, I don't see why. Cool.
No, I heard you, but you cut off a bit. I think it's my internet or yours. I'm not sure. But continue. I think those who can't hear, they must notify us on the side, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Okay, so this one is also recommended for the fragile parts of fragile parts of the plant. If you're going to be using a plant that is very like your flowers, your leaves, etc. So this one, the decoction method, it's recommended for the roots, like the very hard parts. You know, the ones that actually take a bit of time to extract the properties of the herb. So for the hot infusion, the hot decoction, it must be very slow, you know, slow simmer, and it must be not be on high temperatures. So what I've actually gathered is that all the methods, it's highly recommended that you don't expose your herb to very high temperatures while you're still extracting umuthi ngaphakathi. I'm not sure how to express that in English. If you're extracting, it's different from when ufuta, because I imagine that you would have already extracted umuthi ngaphakathi and ufuta ngomuthi already. But if you're trying to extract umuthi from the actual tree, the bark or the root, it has to be on low temperatures. I don't know if everybody understands. So for the hot decoction, you would simmer, For the hot decoction, it's a slow simmer for 45 minutes of your chosen herb. This will either be a bark or a root, and then you leave it on the stove for 45 minutes or more, depending on how potent you want it to be. And then for the infusion process, if you don't wanna use heat to extract, you would put it on water for 8 to 12 hours, and you have to put it on a lid. It has to be like you have to close it for 8 to 12 hours, and then the extraction will take about 8 to 12 hours. And then you would strain your herb, and then you would drink it as desired. You would either rewarm it or reheat it, or you drink it as is cold. Are there any questions or any additions to the decoction method?
Right to go.
Right, qhubeka nje.
So the next method that we're going to discuss is oils. So I love the oils. They have like multiple purposes. I love the oils. So the oils, the first method that I'm going to discuss, it's the base for preparation of ointments. So it's the first portion when you want to make your own ointments. So oils are very good for skin treatment. They're therapeutic. They can be used for massages or having baths. And I think last week we spoke about lavender. When you have a headache, that you can put lavender oil on your forehead to try and relieve the headache. Yeah, so you can also use it as that. So each herb, like in the infusion, has its own prerequisite, and it has to be prepared in its own way. Each herb will be different. So start off the solar infusion. So the most preferable oils that it's vegetable oil and olive oil if you're going to make a solar infusion out of your herbs. for vegetable oil or olive oil. So you place your herbs onto your jar, and then you pour the oil over your jar. Make sure that you put like 2 fingers. So the oil must cover your herb completely by at least 2 fingers. I don't know if that actually makes sense. And then you would place your oil in direct sunlight, and you leave it for 2 weeks. It takes a while. You leave it for 2 weeks, and then you strain it after 2 weeks, and you make sure that you squeeze everything out of those herbs, and then you change the herbs and you put fresh herbs in. And then you follow the same process for 2 weeks, and then you strain it, and then you bottle it. So your herbs are supposed to last you for like a couple of months or more, depending on where you store your your oil. We will discuss the storage method for the oil a bit later. So there's another quick method. I obviously don't recommend it, but it's I prefer the solar method. But yeah, there's another method, the double boiler method. I put an old boiler so that I think everybody's familiar with the boiler pot. An old one. I don't want to confuse some people because now you get all sorts of designs of boiler pots. And some don't even look like your conventional boiler pots anymore. So you would place your oil and the herb on the upper pot, and then on the below pot, on the lower pot, on the lower section, you would have your water. The water then you would heat your water. So the water must be hot enough to produce steam, but it must not be boiling. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yes.
It must be hot. Yeah, it must be hot enough to produce steam to allow for the infusion to happen, but not boiling. So you would leave your pot, your oil on the upper level of the pot for like 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how hard the type of herb that you're using. And then you would strain and you would bottle it. So the lower the heat, the longer the infusion. That's the thing. And the longer the infusion, the better the oil. I'm going to share these slides with everybody for the preparation methods. The ointments. So the ointments, you start off with the process that we just discussed now, the oil preparation. So
just to point out one thing, just a pointer. When you're actually doing the infusion, the oils, it's the first method, the solar infusion. It's you keep it out. You'll keep it out for a number of days, a number of weeks. The longer the time, the better the oil is going to be. It's just an addition, and that also it's also a good thing to get into the habit of shaking it. Of shaking the mix every day, daily. Each time we do, maybe twice a day, just shake it to release everything into the oil. It just helps with the infusion.
It makes a lot of sense.
And like you point out, Vele, the longer it is left out, whatever it is that you're making, the longer you leave it. You can leave it for 3 months. You can eventually even leave it for 3 years, but the better the oil. So what's that?
Excuse me, there's no risk of rot or something like that with these oils. These are organic particles we're talking about. So I'm agreeing with the shaking part, but I'm a bit concerned about the time. So the shaking makes a whole lot of sense.
So if you make sure that the herb is completely covered by the oil, that's why I said you must make sure that there's at least 2 fingers between where the herb ends and like the herb must be below the oil by at least 2 fingers. The rotting process will not happen. It's only when the oil is below the herb. That's where the problem is.
I got you. I think I just realized that it's the oil, of course, that prevents the herb from rotting.
Can everybody hear me?
Is there any way you can use alcohol? This pure alcohol is the recommendable.
We're gonna discuss those methods.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna discuss that method.
I'm jumping the gun. Excuse me.
Getting two tinctures. He's way ahead.
Yeah, totally.
She is way ahead. So I dropped off for a bit. Network today is like not very kind to me. Let me see if I'm still host because it cut off for a bit.
We can hear you. Let me just
We
check.
can hear you.
You are. We
Yeah,
good.
but can you still see the screen? Because the presentation, my laptop dropped off.
Okay, let me.
No,
Let me put it back on.
we can't see the screen.
We can't. Your laptop. Okay, let me see. Just a second. You are back on now. Or
Okay, thank you.
You should be.
Telcom is not kind today.
You must speak truth to your power. You are a healer. You are a magician. Speak, and it shall be.
No, izoyenzeka.
Nazo. Don't say
Izoyenzeka
it's
ngingani.
not. It's unable. Be able. You are host, so we're waiting for you.
Okay, can everybody see my screen now? Or not
We
yet?
can only see your profile picture.
You can only see your profile picture, but you are host now.
Okay.
You can hear your children. That's what we can hear.
No, my children are not here today.
Someone's children.
That's
We have
not-
someone's children.
Okay, I'm sharing the screen now. You let me know when you can
Yes.
see it.
We can see it now.
Go ahead.
We were still discussing ointments. Let me try and make this bigger. Okay, cool. Ointments. So when you prepare ointments, you need the oil that we just discussed right now on the previous preparation method. So you start off with the previous preparation method. So ointments, you generally use them for skin treatment, skin protection, and making a skin firm. And sometimes this process, you can also, with minor adaptation, you can use it for hair treatment as well. So you start off by preparing your oil as per the previous preparation method. Oh my gosh, I dropped off again. Menzi, can you put up the presentation?
Okay, let me try and do that. You know,
I don't know what's going on.
me and technology are not great friends. Hire someone to do these things. So, okay, Masa, just start video or what?
It just share the presentation.
Okay, assuming that I have it here on me right now, it is.
It should be.
Okay, let me just check. There I go. Okay, please be patient with us, Okoko Nomkul. We are working here with an proper ancient, but he is learning. But it said I should just share screen, right? So I've done that.
Yeah, you just share the screen with the presentation open.
When you say share screen, it opens a window, and you should see your PowerPoint presentation on one of the icons.
Wait.
Click on that.
Thank you.
Click on that and say share. Yeah.
I see whiteboard here in iPad. I don't see.
No. Say share screen.
I'm there.
Yeah, and then So on your icons, what do you see?
I see whiteboard, iPhone, iPad, and I see screen. Okay.
Do you have the presentation open?
Did you open your PowerPoint first? Yes.
Okay. It's here.
I love the,
Not like
the background.
but I like your patience. Okay, Okay, there. Think I'm getting closer to the truth. There. Ah, I made it.
So
everyone can see?
Nkulu,
Everyone can see?
Menzi, I'm glad I'm not the only one who
Okay, yeah.
struggles.
We must learn. We don't allow failure, lack, and all these things like ignorance and
Yes.
okay, non-ability, not disability. We are able. So can you see the screen now?
Yes.
All right. Can you
Yes.
continue?
And you need to move to the slide that speaks on ointments.
Okay. Okay, that's slide number 5. 5 numbers, something else.
Good, Mkulu. It's slide number 8.
8. No, you were
9.
number 9, yes. This thing is easy. It tells you what to do. Okay, continue. I know you're laughing.
I like that. I love that. I just love the way it comes out so naturally.
I'm sure it's not number 10.
You can proceed to number 10, Mkulu. It's okay.
It was number 9, but you can, yeah, okay.
Okay, we are here. This is where you were. I continue. I think it's on
Okay.
Young sis. But continue.
So the process starts with an already prepared oil, following the oil preparation method. For preparing ointments, you're gonna need beeswax. There's probably other bases that you can use, but for purposes of today's study, or if somebody has a method, other bases, please do share. So for beeswax method, you put the wax in a pot, and then you melt it. And once it has melted, you add your oil, and then you mix until an infusion happens. Like it's properly mixed. The oil has mixed well with the wax. And once that has happened, you leave it to there's a word for this, for it to become firm again.
Okay.
So if your ointment is, sorry?
No. I thought you were gonna say ferment, but that's not what you meant. Solidify.
No, it's so that solidify. Yeah. So if you feel that your ointment is too hard, you can add more oil. But if you feel that your ointment is too runny, you can add more wax. So it's about, I add oil or wax depending on how you want the texture of your ointment to be. If you want it runny, you add less wax. If you want it a bit firm, then you add more wax. Mkulu, if you can move to the next slide. Now we're going to talk about the tinctures that Mkulu Menzi jumped to a bit earlier on. So for tinctures are so they're better than pills for me, basically. I don't know about others, how everybody else feels, but for me, tinctures are better than pills. And they recommend it if you need like a potent dose of a herb, then tinctures are recommended. Mkulu, you can move to the next slide. So I've put up the different purposes of why you'd use tinctures. So for tinctures, you would need your chosen herb, obviously following the preparation method of whatever herb that you'll be using. And then you place your herb in a jar, and then you pour alcohol over the herb. Like the oils, you would need to have at least 2 things. Your herb needs to be covered in the alcohol by at least two fingers. So for the tinctures, you would need like your vodka, your gin, or your brandy, or you can make your own any of these spirits for yourself. But that's a process on its own, and maybe one day we'll discuss that process. But yeah, it's angshaya dermaka. But if there's another a healer who knows how,
is it possible to obtain alcohol other than from these very sugary things like vodka and brandy, like what you just mentioned. Is there no other way to obtain alcohol?
You can make your own alcohol, Mkhulu, but that's a process on its own.
I understand that. I'm saying, is there any other way? Does anyone know any other way of obtaining alcohol outside of the making or buying hops? Like a chemical from clinical, what do you call it? Pharmacy, not pharmacies. What do you call it? Clinical vibes, or maybe not. You can't. You can only get alcohol in the shops.
I don't want to lie to you. I don't know.
Okay, it's fine.
Thokoza.
You have Thokoza Kok.
Thokoza. It's actually also important to note when we're dealing with alcohols, it's not all alcohol is safe for consumption.
Yes.
So it is actually advisable to actually make it or get it from a pharmacy or from any dealer that is dealing with alcohol that is for consumption. So the alcohol element is very tricky. There's another way of making tinctures without using alcohol. Alcohol is the best. And also look at the kinds of alcohol as well. There's rum. Coco didn't bala a rum, but she's done this amazing presentation. There's rum. Rum also works, but also look at the the quality of the alcohol. So it's not also just any alcohol that can be used, but another thing that can be used is glycerine to make.
I discussed that in the next.
The
next
Thokoza.
slide.
Thokoza. Let me just listen in. I'm actually having fun here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So I discussed the other tincture method in the next slide. So I think I covered two methods for making tinctures. So it's the alcohol-based and the glycerin-based tinctures. And the vinegar-based.
Yes.
Did I include vinegar? Okay, we'll see. I'm not sure if I included vinegar, but we can discuss it even if I didn't include it. So you must make sure that like the oils, you must make sure that the herb is completely covered with the alcohol by at least 2 fingers. And then you leave your herb out for like the longer, like we said with the oils, the longer you leave it, the better, you know. And with the alcohol, you need to shake it at least once a day. When you're still at the early phases, you need to shake it at least once a day to reactivate the herbs. And then always check, because in the alcohol, always check that your herb is still below the alcohol. It's still covered by the alcohol. So you may be required to refill the alcohol as well. And then once you have left it out, you can, if you feel that your herb is now ready, you can strain and then bottle your tincture. So this should be able to last you for like a good a year or so. And you can also take your herb out to the sun or on the moonlight as well to expose it to that, to get the healing properties out of that and the energies. Mkhulu, you can move to the next slide if there's no questions for this on this.
Before I do that, can I just ask, have we spoken about amounts here? Like how much herb? Like let's say for example, I'm making rosemary oil. I've got plenty of rosemary all over the house, all over the garden. The amount for how much alcohol and how much, I understand I know you explained how much the oil must be, like 2 fingers length above the herb and all that. But how much herb are we speaking about? Because you're talking about lasting a year or lasting a month or 2. But how much does a batch make? How much? Yeah.
So each herb would be different, Mkhulu. That's why the quantity, I'm refraining from talking about the quantity of the herb or the herb itself.
Okay,
because each herb would have its own prerequisites. Like it has its own pre-preparation method before you can even get to the tincture method. So for purposes here, So as we discuss the herbs, as we progress in the Healing Sundays, as we progress in the discussion of the herbs, it would be beneficial that we also discuss that how the herb that particular or that specific herb can be prepared, so that we can share that knowledge. That okay, when you're preparing a tincture for this type of herb, this is the recommendations. I don't know if I'm making sense, because if we're going to speak about it generically, we might end up making a lot of mistakes, and it might be taken as the gospel truth for everything.
Noted.
So for preparing the glycerin-based tincture, you follow the same method as the alcohol-based tincture, with the one variation: your liquid. Instead of putting alcohol, you would put vegetable glycerin in it. Vegetable glycerin. And then you can move on to the next one. Yes, I did. So for the vinegar-based tincture, instead of putting alcohol, you follow the same method as the alcohol-based tincture, but instead of putting alcohol, you put apple cider vinegar. I'm not sure if I generally prefer using apple cider vinegar. I'm not sure about the other vinegars. And maybe if somebody else who has the knowledge as to whether it's safe to use other vinegars, maybe we can share that knowledge. But I generally prefer using apple cider vinegar.
Noted.
Oh,
You
Gogo in. Yeah, there's a Gogo in the waiting room.
She's in. Or should be. She's in. She's in. Mansebe.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
Yes.
in. Yeah. She's.
You can continue.
Are there any questions on the tinctures? Or any additions?
I don't.
Okay. Okay. And we can proceed, Mkul. Liniments. So liniments, basically liniments are for outside. Please don't ever make the mistake of drinking liniment. That's why I also put on that you need to label when I put the tincture, the preparation. When you bottle your tinctures, please make sure that you label them, because you don't want to start drinking something and you don't know what's inside, because that can happen. So please make sure that you label your once you've stored your tinctures or your liniments. So the difference with the liniment and the tincture is that instead of using consumable alcohol, you use the alcohol, like rubbing alcohol instead. So that one is not for human consumption, and liniments are generally for outside use, disinfecting and like rubbing. If you've got a sore, like a muscle pull or something like that, you would rub it on there.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
It makes sense to me, but
okay. So there's
no question.
Yeah. So please make sure that you label them very properly, because you don't want to make mistakes. Because I foresee certain dangers with this. You can move to the next slide, Mkulu. Syrups. So syrups, they for me, I feel that they're nice to have. They're not really, but they're nice to have, and they're good for children as well. If you have children and you want to use herbs, or maybe you're a person who's got a very sweet tooth, so basically you would take your herb of choice as prepared in whatever prerequisite way, and then you would place it in a 1 liter water, and the dosage would be determined by the type of herb that you would be using. And then you put it on a slow simmer. You slow cook it until the water gets to about 500 mils, or 500 mils, because then we're trying to saturate the herb. So once the infusion happens, we ideally want the herb to be very, very saturated and potent. And then once that has happened, you can put your syrup. So you can use different syrups. You can use honey, maple syrup, or even sugar. And then you mix your herb with your honey, maple syrup, and your sugar. And then when the infusion has happened, you can leave it out to cool, and that's that. But with the honey, when you're using honey, the longer you leave it on the stove, that's the thicker your syrup will be. I don't know if it makes sense. And ideally, when you're using honey, you must try to preserve honey on its own. Has its own healing properties. So you would want to leave it on the stove for as long as you want. It's necessary. So the longer it stays on the stove, the more it loses its healing properties. I don't know if it makes sense. So once the mixture is well mixed, you would want to remove the mixture from the stove so that you don't lose all the healing properties from your honey. Does it make sense?
Makes sense. Can you add a little bit more on the healing properties of honey exactly? What
Kulu, I believe that is.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Ooh. You know, I somehow I think I may have had this when I was preparing this, ne? I was like, okay, let me put them on, ne? And then I didn't. And I should have trusted my instincts, and I didn't.
Always.
And right now, I can't tell you off the top of my head. I would be lying to you, like seriously. I would be lying to you.
Anyone
may I suggest, Coco? It's not a train smash.
Yeah, no.
But you can always, perhaps in the chat on WhatsApp, just include those, or when you provide the slides, just include them in the slides. It's fine. Don't feel guilty about it. It's good.
No, the thing is, as I was preparing the slides, I thought about it. That what if somebody asked this question, and there you go, somebody asked the question.
Yeah, your instinct
So
is usually right.
It has antibacterial properties, and it relieves inflammation. Thank you, Gogo.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, just so that we all remember, when you share the slides, do include it so that we don't miss out. It's this session has a lot to take in, so we might miss out a couple of things. Yeah, thanks, Kok.
So is there a need for a revision of what's been covered, or do people have comments, questions, suggestions? Besides the fact that we must make this what did you call it, Msheli? A webinar for next weekend, for next week.
Yeah.
I have some things that I need to share.
Yeah, we need to share with as many people as is possible. This information is really very helpful, and our people do need it. So yes.
For herbal candy.
Yes.
Yeah. So for herbal candies, once you've made your syrup, ne, that's like the first step when you're making candy, like herbal candies. I removed the candy and the pills. Now I remember the other one it's the candy, herbal candy and herbal pills. For herbal candies, once you've made the syrup, you're halfway there. And yeah, if you know how to make candy moving from after you've made the syrup, that's just that.
Candy enjani? Sweet wenziwe ngani?
With the herbs.
What herb? Hey, Tina,
your chosen herb.
We don't know these things.
So you can make candy from the herbal, especially if you're going to be giving it to children, because herbs, they're very bitter, you know. And if you want to give to children, maybe as part of the treatment, or then you would want to make a syrup or make herbal candy. So if you've already made syrup, ne, as we have spoken earlier, the longer you leave the honey on the stove, the more it solidifies. So you're almost halfway there, you know, depending on what type of candy you are preparing. But you're halfway there if you've made the syrup. Does it answer your question, Mkhulu?
It does, but I'm just realizing that our sessions need sessions within a session within a session. It's yeah. So we're gonna go in depth, but we're gonna see what modality, what methodology we use. It might be this way, or it might be another.
Go.
So
someone is knocking, so let's welcome Twana. Or even though we are towards the end of the session, but we will welcome you. Do we do a revision?
Definitely.
Do we do a revision?
Can I just ask a question? Hello,
Yes,
Gogo.
please.
I wanted to find out whether the syrups, if there's a likelihood that the syrups could change the chemical compound of the herbs that you're combining them with. I mean, obviously you wouldn't know every single one of them, but are you aware of any that may do that? Because I like the fact that you add them, you know, for the kids and stuff, but I'm just a bit worried about that part.
Yeah, you know what, ne? This would go for each and every preparation method, ne? But not all the herbs can be prepared can be made a syrup, and not all the herbs can be made an oil, and not all the herbs can be made into an infusion. I don't know if it like a hot infusion, like we spoke about it a bit earlier, that hot infusions are not recommended for all herbs. There are some herbs which are heat sensitive, and therefore it's not ideal for you to put them under it, like, and make them into a hot infusion. And I think it would depend on the herb as well, you know. And it's very much important that when we discuss the herbs, as we also discuss Uguti, is it safe for Uguti you prepare it this way or not? I think it would be beneficial for everybody that we also discuss that. Yes. Because you don't want to take a herb, Uguti, it's not meant to be prepared in this way, and then you start putting it and making it go through this way, and then the result is it turns out Uguti it's more poisonous than yeah.
Then helpful. Okay, so then when we're doing this research, when we come back, you know, to share on the group, we need to add things like that, you know,
like the preparation methods.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I like this last question because about whether they can change. It's like because some of these things have sugar. I'm worried more about like things like sugar. Like if you talk about syrup, like I need to specify which kind. I need specifics to say which kind of syrup. You know, that's why I was worried about the alcohol at the same time. You know, because alcohol, some of us don't even consume it. So things like that. But it also has a high sugar level. You know. So,
but alcohol is generally, that's what activates the alcohol when you make alcohol, the sugar.
Glucose or something.
Yeah, that's the sugar. When you make during the alcohol preparation, I'm yet to see a process here of making alcohol that doesn't include either a fermentation agent or sugar. I'm yet.
It makes chemistry sense.
But then the alcohol, doesn't majority of it, what's the English on Sunday? You know, so that's why you don't necessarily get drunk from consuming that medicine with alcohol. I think you'd have to have a lot of it in order to get drunk. So because when you're mixing it up, majority of it
evaporates.
I know, flies away.
It evaporates, yes.
Yes. Thank you for the English.
But Mkhulu Menzi, there is a method to extract the alcohol when you want to bottle it. I'll find out for you, but there is a method of extracting the alcohol, but it only extracts like 50% of the alcohol. It doesn't extract all the alcohol. But once you've prepared your tincture, there's a method of de-alcoholizing your tincture. But yeah, we can explore that as well and see if it works for you or not, you know, or for the people who don't really like alcohol. But also you can just opt for the glycerin method or the vinegar-based method, because when you futhi vinegar based is more ideal, because when you make vinegar, you follow the same process as making wine. The only difference is that you're not as so cautious. That's why that's a topic on another day,
I
on how to make wine.
Yeah,
yeah, but you follow the same process.
Thank you so much. Speaking of topics for another day, I am very eager for us in these sessions to also invite the indigenous herbs, right? So I know you are talking about alcohol and glycerin and all that. Somehow in the back of my mind, I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking, we have not touched properly on our herbs, which are indigenous to us. I hope you understand what I'm saying. No disrespect. I am just talking about our herbs. Like, for example, here in Zimbabwe, when you're talking about teas, here in Zimbabwe, I buy a whole lot of like zumbani and all kinds of mapomopane, neem tree and things like that. So they are made into teas already. So I'm just basically drinking some dried leaves of some herb somewhere. So that's indigenous to Zimbabwe. But indigenous to Eswatini, to what they call azania. I'm hoping that maybe in our next sessions then we can, or is the same methods used by Izinyanga as it's used by the West? That's my question.
This is the infusion. The West just gave it names. The infusions, we've been doing it for years.
But the process in terms of like, you know, like let's say African potato, what they call it, potato. What's it called again in isiZulu? Going into it is made in a certain way and boiled for long, depending on what you are making. Okay, let me just make an easier example. You know, people talk a lot about it. When we started the group, we were talking about impep. There was a lot of slides on the WhatsApp group about impep. So that's the kind of knowledge I'm looking for also. I don't know if I'm digressing.
Okay.
You can just add.
So for purposes of this, I thought about linking this the preparation methods to a specific herb, but then it's kind of it would have meant that we have to go back each time we discuss a herb and discuss the process. So for purposes of this session, I just wanted us to focus on the preparation methods, so that when we get deep into, let's say we're discussing impep and the various preparation methods, a person can easily go back to these slides, and we say you can make a tincture out of it. You can easily go back to the slides and you know which process to follow when you're making a tincture. And when we say you can make a solar infusion out of it, you can easily go back to these slides and to know which process to follow when we're saying a solar infusion. So as we progress and we discuss the various herbs, it becomes easier when we start talking about the herb and the appropriate preparation method, and hence the session. Because last week we were talking about the various herbs, and then when I said, like for instance, I think we were talking about, wait, just give me a second. We were talking about a specific herb, and I said that you can make a tincture out of it. And I realized that not everybody understands what is a tincture, you know? And having to explain each time, it becomes, we have limited time. Sundays are very short, you know? So once the herbs has been discussed, I think it was rosemary, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we were talking about rosemary, and we said that you can make a tincture out of rosemary, and or you can make a tea infusion out of it. And then the question was that how do you then make a tea infusion? Hence the session to discuss the different preparation methods, so that when we talk about the herbs, like your rosemaries or your gingers or any other herb, when we refer to a specific preparation methods, people are actually aware what exactly we are talking about, as opposed to deviating and start talking about the actual, like the detailed preparation method. It doesn't make sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yes, that was the agreement, yeah, to familiarize everybody with the processes. Then going forward, at least we're starting from the same base. Understood, Gogo.
So good. Are there any other questions, additions to the preparation methods? That
there's something that you mentioned last week about don't take medicine that you don't need. Excuse the carbs out there, but yeah, can you just reiterate that in terms of for example, I told you that I take certain kinds of teas. Most of these teas are like antibacterial, whatever, anti-inflammatory. They're just teas that are therapeutic in many different ways. What is an overdose in this African medicine, in indigenous medicine? Is there such a thing as an overdose?
So teas, Mkulu, teas are different from like tinctures and liniments, because the teas, the dosage is not very potent, you know, and they're recommended for chronic illness or long-term alignments, like useful alignments. And they generally, depending on which herb you're using, generally this can be used for like long term, but some herbs it is recommended that you don't, like your umhlonyane, it's not recommended that you drink umhlonyane for longer than 4 weeks without taking a break in between. So teas in general, it would also depend on the type of herb that you're using, because you cannot be on garlic tea for every day for a prolonged period and you actually don't use it, and you don't need it. And because we discussed last week that garlic thins your blood.
Yeah, we spoke about side effects.
Yeah, garlic thins your blood, and it also it decreases your sugar levels, your insulin levels. And that if you would have to know why you're taking the herb and what are the effects. And also during it in the group, I think Dr. Lina explained it quite nicely when she said that sometimes some herbs, when you take them, you need to balance it out with another herb. You can't take it on its own, so you need to counter it with another herb. That does it make sense?
Noted.
This is this is where knowledge of the people that actually understand herbs comes into play, because sometimes the self-medication can be very dangerous as well, you know, especially if you're going to be using something for a long term, you know. Self-medication can be very, very dangerous because you don't, first of all, the dosages are very tricky, and also having to know that if I'm going to be taking this herb, how do I balance it out with another herb? And how do I properly prepare it? Because you can't just take a herb, or not all the herbs can be taken as is and prepared it into an infusion. Sometimes you need to activate the healing properties before you can start making an infusion out of them. Hence, I always say that don't take medicine that you don't need. Don't. And whether or not you need them, it goes with you and your relationship with your own body. You need to understand your own body, and you need to keep track of the foods that you intake. Your first point of departure should be try to balance your diet. try to balance your diet to make sure that you have all the nutrients that your body would need. And once you've done that, you shouldn't be needing any additional stuff, because all the stuff, your garlics and your rosemary, would already be embedded onto either your food preparation method, or your food preparation method. And some herbs, they don't lose their healing properties by adding them onto a stew or something. We had this discussion when we were talking about the garlic, that garlic doesn't lose its healing properties when you add it onto a stew or onto something else. So after you've eaten a stew as no garlic, now you want to go on and drink a garlic tea or garlic, something based with garlic. That's not okay. That's not okay. In as much as herbs are safe and all, but everything in moderation.
Okay.
Everything in moderation.
Okay, I see. I would like to maybe close with a few words from the listeners, people who have been listening, maybe with regards to these issues of planetary, like the connection between. I know it might be another subject, but the planetary, or the connection between iskati and the intake of the herb, or the harvesting of the herb. You know, like for example, like I've got lavender. How do I know which season or which time is it? Like, just because it has a flower, is it ready to be taken and made into a tea? I've got rosemary, plenty rosemary. Are there seasonal things related to this? Well, anyone can comment on it. Am I making sense? Am I even audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So is my question clear? I'm asking about, there's full moon, there's seasons for everything. There's new moon. People talk about meditation, because I'm trying to be holistic about the intake of the medicine. I know we are talking about natural medicine, the herbs and the roots and everything. What can we add, like here, in terms of what's the right time to drink a particular thing? Because you're saying don't take medicine you don't need, but there is also this issue, especially these days, about immune boosting. I've got no ailments, I'm not coughing, but I feel like I need to boost my immune system because I'm spending a lot of time in public, for example. I touch people, or I'm healing people. So what kind of things should I take as precautionary herbs, or precautionary herb healing? That makes sense.
It makes sense, Nkulu. It's just a
It's
tough
too much of a
question.
I'm sorry. I'm just hoping we can put it on another day.
Oh, no, this one is rough. I think it needs a little bit of research.
Okay, it's fine. We will do some research, because I was trying to link it to the fact that we especially we are observing the chemetic science. We observe the seasons, and not just chemetic science. This in general. Isn't those now you need to go and take something, but in winter there are certain things, like things bloom in a particular season, in summer or in spring. Spring, there are certain things that are more seasonal, so
Yes,
I look up on this.
You are right. You are right. There are certain herbs that you should actually be taking at specific times of the year. Just like you're saying, like certain foods. Like now we're in winter. What you should be focusing on are the fruits that are and vegetables that are prevalent in winter time. But now we still manage to find strawberries at this time, even though they're not a winter fruit. And there's a reason why they're not a winter fruit. There's a reason why they're not around at this time, because we're supposed to be building our immune system on those fruits and vegetables that come around at this time. So yes, you are right, but I think it needs a little bit of research.
Yes.
So that we can then share it and share it properly.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody knows off the top of their head.
Decolonize our nutrition somehow,
Yeah, for this, I liked how Dr. Lina explained ukuthi, like she has what's this, boosters on her range, ne? And you know, I think she's one of the people. Maybe we should invite people that actually deal with the holistic in nutrients, you know, and not just look at it from a herbal booster in terms of balancing out your diet. How do you know which time to take this type of what's this at this during the season? What should you be eating to make sure that your body gets the required nutrients during the season? This is the time that you should be focusing on this. And what I actually like is that is if it's possible, we can also link it to how to spirituality, our chakras, yeah, our chakras as well, in terms of balancing out our diet to make sure with the foods that we eat are not actually creating blockages in spiritually as well. And that's a session on its own, Mkhulu. I foresee it being a session on its own, and it would be ideal that we invite somebody that specifically deals with taking care of your body
Specialist.
holistically. Yeah, that's why I refer to like about Dr. Lina, who specializes in these things, because angeke sibe abomasta sonke yazo zonke izinto. There's people about ukuthi bawazi umuthi, like this is what they know, this is their field, and this is this person's field, and we need to respect the fact that this is ubizo lwabo to actually do that. And yeah, and not think ukuthi a Google search is going to help us with that regard, because some ezinye izinto zubizo. I don't
And they can charge
I
us
hope
if they need to. If we need to be charged, because of course this is. I look at things like there's something called copyleft and copyright, right? So certain things are global commons. They are human rights and commons. We just supposed to know them, like you're teaching us. But as time goes by, you know, you can charge us for the information, and whoever we may call, and if they decide to say no, each member must pay like $50, for example. I'm just making an example. For this information, I'm going to come and share this information. All well, I think that's great. It's okay. We should do that because we like search ends at the same time. Abelapi, they are here to help us.
I just wanted to share something based on what Ugogo Nelly has just shared about the chakras. I actually found some good material that I'd like to share in the WhatsApp group so that everybody can also see it. It literally breaks down what food you should be eating for which chakra, what crystal you should be using, what essential oil you can use if you feel that there's a blockage. So it's very nice and detailed and user friendly. So I wasn't sure if it taps into the herbal group, but since Nkosi brought it up, I'll share with the group about it.
It's perfect. I think that's great. Please do. Thokoza. Ngizozwa ngabo ke abantu esihlangene nabo when the session should fold. Are there any more questions, suggestions, comments? No. If there is no more questions, uMaNkosi angasivalela with the word of parting word.
okay. There was a question.
I'm joking, but there was a question.
There was a question in the chat as to where the slides will be shared. Usually, so I would generally share the slides on the healing group, but I think Guguti, it's counter effective in terms of what we want to achieve. So I will see if it's possible to share the slides as well on the Facebook on the Facebook page
That would be great.
as well, but they'll be converted into pictures, so they will not be in a PDF or in a PowerPoint format. They'll be converted into pictures and they'll be uploaded onto the Facebook page. And eventually, once we've set up the blog, we will put up the slides there, all the slides and all the recordings of the sessions there for those who actually do not have get a chance to make it to the session on a particular day. So thank you so much for joining us during this session. I'm very grateful that we get to share this knowledge with each other, and we get, and this actually touches me when people start drinking things that they don't know or they don't understand. It's a very emotional topic for me. Uzumuntu nje telling you that they've been drinking whatever, and you ask them, why are you drinking this, and they don't know. They drink it because no, this is good for you. And how is it good for you? Do you actually know the side effects? And the fact that we're sitting here and we're having these discussions and we get to share with the public. Hence, I understand when it's said that it needs to be turned into a webinar, because we can't be having discussions amongst ourselves as healers, because we already know this knowledge in one form or another. And we need to share the knowledge with the community as well, so that they know what the correct way of doing things, and not to think Guguti, you can take information from Google and use it as however, because Google, it doesn't go with the experience and the years of a person having to use herbs, having been engaged, like using herbs as a healer. That knowledge, you can't paste that on Google. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experiences with us. And hopefully we can get to a point where we get to share this knowledge with the general public, to educate our people on how to use herbs properly. And I'm hoping that one day I won't be the presenter, the only presenter. I hope, I hope one day we can get presentations from about the crystals and everything, or any other healer, because this is a healing group, and knowing how to use things properly, it's very key towards our progression.
Just one more note about the blog. I will share the blog on the Facebook group which we created yesterday. The Facebook page, Ikambi Natural Healing, and then I will share it on our WhatsApp group and many other groups. A word: it's important to follow the blog. Once you see it, just follow it so that you can get more information and make comments. In a lot of blogs, I see people sometimes they don't engage. They'll read, maybe like something, and they're not engaged. So the reason why we're opening it, instead of a website, we want something which is interactive, where people can interact, and hence the blog. So I'm gonna share it later today. We're gonna create the blog. It's gonna be called Ikambi Natural Healing, and the Facebook link is gonna be there. And I'm not sure about the WhatsApp. The Facebook is gonna be there, and I think a bit of maybe something Twitter. I'm not sure whether we should do Instagram yet, but we'll discuss that on the group, and we'll advise. But it's important to follow, like the blog, and share it amongst others, so that we can reach as many people as possible. And we'll announce what the next session is going to be. I might be presenting on it, but we'll see.
It's me. It's me. Now I'm just thinking about the technological disadvantage that you have. It's going to be an interesting session.
I guess when I'm host, I mean, all I'll do is talk. You will do you'll do everything. I'll just speak, and I'm gonna ask questions. Don't worry. When I present, when I facilitate something, I'm just not just speaking. So
on 19 PC, King.
Excuse me, King.
Uzalwe ngo-19 BC.
19,
Computers.
I'm an ancient youth, you know. But anyway, it's all good. Thank you. And for those who've just joined
Yeah, we all like that.
us late, next time join us early so you can gain something. We'll love you for joining in. But please, 9 o'clock is 9. You can't come to the session after. Okay. Let me stop it.
No, but you're correct. Punctuality is important, Royals. Asizame ngoba kubalulekile. Asizame. I know it's difficult, it's a Sunday, but let's try and be punctual.
It's not difficult to go to Papa at 7 o'clock. So it must not be difficult to do this.
Yeah.
Everybody. Ukuthula makube nani.
Hotep Uncle Jazinep.
Uja Senep. Impilo. Ukuthula. Ngokonke okuhle. Usilandele makhanye. Emakhaya enu. Tamaku.
Amagu.